Most of us go through life feeling like we're the only fully conscious being in the room. I mean, not in an arrogant way, not because we think we're better than everyone else. It's just that that's the way the brain works. You experience everything from inside your own head, your thoughts, your worries, your plans, your feelings. They're loud and constant and real. And everyone else, they're just kind of there, moving around in the background of your story. Now, think about the last time you were stuck in traffic. What were you thinking about? Probably how late you were, right? How annoying this was. Maybe you were rehearsing a conversation in your head or thinking about what you need to do when you got home. You weren't thinking about the person in the car next to you, and even if you noticed them, even if you glanced over for a second, they were just an obstacle, a blurry extra in the scene. Or think about the last time you walked through a crowded place like a mall, or maybe on the street or a bus terminal. Hundreds of people are moving a different direction, and to you, they were basically furniture. You were navigating around them, not really seeing them. And this is what we call the main character syndrome. And of course, I don't mean it as an insult because honestly, every one of us has it. It's not a flaw, it's just the default setting. But here's the thing about default settings, they can be changed. There's a time of day I look forward to more than almost anything else. It's called the blue hour. That window right after the sun goes down, but before the sky turns fully dark, everything gets quiet, soft color. Not quite the day, not quite the night. And if you've never stopped to actually notice it, I really think you should. I'm usually not home during this time, and honestly, that's kind of the point. Because when you're outside during the blue hour, something happens to the city. The whole rhythm of it shifts. The people who were rushing somewhere all day and are now rushing somewhere else. Back home, back to the people they love, back to the lives they left on that morning. The night markets are starting to open. The vendors setting up their stalls, arranging things. They're calling out to people passing by. Street food, smoke, the smell of something cooking. Motorcycles weaving through traffic. Strangers walking fast with somewhere to be. And I just watch. Not in a weird way, of course. I'm just standing there, taking it in. And something about that specific light, that blue fading light, makes everything feel a little more cinematic, a little more real somehow. And I start to wonder, that woman walking quickly down the sidewalk, where's she going? Is she excited to get there? Or is she dreading it? That old man, what about that? Sitting outside his shop, just watching the street and the same way I am. What is he thinking about? How about that group of kids laughing about something? What's so funny about it? What's the joke I'll never hear? You start pulling at these threads and you realize pretty quickly that every single person in that scene has an entire world inside of them. A world you will never see. A world that is just as detailed, just as messy, just as full of meaning as your own. And for a moment, the background comes to life. Sometimes when I'm away from home, I get this feeling out of nowhere. And it usually hits during these moments when I'm sitting somewhere by myself and it's the blue hour, not really doing anything. I think, what is my family doing right now? Like, right now. Not in a general sense, but right now, at this exact moment. Is my mom in the kitchen? Is she cooking dinner? Maybe moving around the same small space she's been moved around in for years? Maybe humming something. Maybe, I don't know, just thinking. Is my dad sitting in his usual spot watching something on TV? The volume a little too loud the way it always is. Is something or someone in the middle of a conversation I'll never know about? Did something happen today that they'll talk about it at dinner and I'll never hear? Their day happened, fully, without me in it. And I know that sounds obvious when you say it out loud. Of course their day happened. Of course their life kept moving. But there's a difference between knowing something and actually feeling it. And when you actually feel it, when it lands, it's kind of a strange sensation. Because you realize that you've been the main character of your own life for so long that somewhere along the way, without meaning to, you started to treat the people you love the most as supporting characters. People who exist most fully when they're in the room with you. People whose lives somehow pause when you're not around to witness them. But they don't. They never did. Your mom has a whole inner life you've never seen. Thoughts she's never said out loud, even worries she's carried quietly so you wouldn't have to. Moments of happiness that had nothing to do with you. A version of herself that had existed long before you were born and will continue to exist long after any conversation with you ends. The people closest to you, the ones you know better than anyone, are still, in so many ways, a mystery. And if that's true for the people you love the most, imagine what's true for everyone else. There's actually a word for this feeling. And I want to be clear, I'm not bringing up the word because knowing it will change anything. I mean, a label doesn't give you the feeling. You either feel it or you don't. But I think there's something useful about knowing that someone at some point felt this strongly enough to name it. The word is Sonder. It was coined by a writer named John Koenig, or Koenig, I don't know how to pronounce it right, but he spent years collecting and investing words for emotions that didn't have names yet. Emotions that were real and human and universal, but somehow fell through the cracks of language. And his definition of Sonder is this: it is the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. That's it. That's the whole thing. But sit with that for a second because I think we tend to read definitions and move on before they actually sink in. Each random passerby, not your friends, not your family, not your people you've chosen to pay attention to. Imagine random people, the stranger on the street, the person behind you in line, the driver of the car that just passed you on the highway going somewhere you'll never know. Each of them is living a life as vivid and complex as your own. Same volume, same depth, same chaos, same love, same confusion, same quiet moments at the end of the day where they're just lying down, thinking about their life and where it's going. The same internal monologue you have running in your head right now. Well, they have one too. It never stops. It's been going their entire life and you'll never hear a single word of it. That, my friend, is Sonder. Late at night, when most people are already inside, I sometimes find myself looking out the street. Well, it's obviously different from the blue hour because the blue hour feels alive and warm and full of, motion. Late night is also, well, something else. It's quieter, it's slower. The kind of quiet that makes you aware of things that are still moving inside it. And there are always people. Not many, of course, but they're there. A person walking alone in the middle of the street, someone on a motorcycle passing by without stopping, a couple talking outside somewhere, their voice is too low to make out the words, a single light on a window across the way, and I think, what are they doing out there? Not in a suspicious way, of course, but just genuinely. What is their agenda at this hour? Because nobody's outside at midnight by accident. Something brought them out there. Something kept them from being home or in bed or wherever people are supposed to be at this time of the night. Maybe they couldn't sleep. I don't know. Maybe they just got off a long shift and this commute home is the only quiet that they've had all day. Maybe they're walking because they need to think and the walls of their room started closing in. Maybe something happened tonight, something good or something terrible, and they needed air. You don't know. You'll never know. And there's something about that nighttime that makes Sonder hit differently than the blue hour. During the day, it's easier to keep people at a distance. Everything is moving too fast. There's So much happening. Your brain is busy, but late at night, when the city slows down and the noise drops away, you see one single person walking alone and under a streetlight. It's harder to make them a background character. They're too visible. They're too alone, too human. And you find yourself genuinely hoping for no reason at all that they're okay. That whatever brought them outside tonight is something they're going to get through. That they have someone waiting for them somewhere. You don't know their name, you've never spoken, you'll never cross paths again. But for that one moment, standing there in the dark, you actually cared about them. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. And here's what I've noticed about people who are genuinely good at caring about others. It's not that they're nicer than everyone else. It's not that they're born with more patience or they're born, more compassionate or with some special capacity for kindness the rest of us are missing. It's something simpler than that and also somehow harder. They just stopped assuming that their experience is the default one. Because that's what's really getting in the way, isn't it? Not malice, of course, not selfishness, at least not in a dramatic sense. Just the quiet, unconscious assumption that the way you experience life is basically the way everyone else experiences it. That your stress is the standard level of stress, that your problems are the normal size of problems, that the way things looked from inside of your head is roughly how they look from inside of everyone else's. And when you operate from that assumption, empathy becomes almost impossible. Because you'll meet someone who's short with you and think they're rude, when maybe they've been holding something heavy for weeks and today was just the day it got too heavy. You'll meet someone who seems distant and think they're cold when maybe they're just exhausted in a way that doesn't show on the outside. You'll misread people constantly, not because you're a bad person, but because you're working with incomplete information and you don't even know it. Sonder fixes that, or at least, well, it starts to. When you generally internalize the idea that every person you encounter is carrying an entire invisible life, full of, history and worry and love, regret, and even hope, your first instinct stops being judgment and starts being curiosity. You stop asking what is wrong with this person and start wondering what is going on with this person. And that one shift, that single letter difference between wrong and going, changes everything about how you show up for people. Patience become easier. Not effortless, but easier. Because you're no longer comparing their behavior to some imaginary standard. You're just acknowledging that you don't have the full picture. And you never do. Well, kindness becomes less transactional. You're not being nice because you expect something back or because it makes you look good. You're being kind because you've looked at a stranger and thought, this person is real. This person is going through something. This person deserves at least a small moment of being seen. And judgment, that constant background noise of sizing people up and filing them away, that, it softens. Not completely, of course, because you're human. It never disappears entirely, but it softens because, well, it's genuinely hard to be harsh towards someone whose inner life you've tried to imagine even for a second. This is why Sonder isn't just a pretty feeling to have at dusk when the city looks cinematic and you're in a reflective mood. It is actually a practice, something you can return to, something you can choose on a bad day, in a frustrating moment. When someone is getting on your nerves or the world feels different and cold, you can pause, look at the person in front of you and remember. They have a home they go back to. People know their name, a version of themselves that exists completely outside of this interaction with you. A whole story you walked into the middle of without knowing any of the earlier chapters. You are a stranger in their life the same way they are a stranger in yours. And somehow that makes everything feel a little less personal and a little more human, a little easier to navigate together. I don't really have a lesson to leave you with. I don't think this is the kind of thing that needs one. You can't think your way into caring about people. You can't follow a 5-step plan and wake up tomorrow overflowing with empathy. It doesn't work like that, but I do think you can practice noticing. Next time you're outside during the quiet window, when the day is shifting into something else, just look around for a second. Not your phone, not at where you're going, just at the people around you. The ones moving fast, the ones standing still, the ones who look tired, the ones who look like they're somewhere else in their head completely. And just wonder. That's all. Just let yourself wonder about them for a moment. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to talk to anyone or change your behavior or become a different person overnight. Just wonder. Because here's the thing about Sonder. Once you really felt it, once it's actually landed and not just passed through an interesting idea, it leaves something behind. A small but permanent shift in the way you see people. A little less certainty, a little more space, a little more grace for the strangers you brush past every day without a second thought. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's actually the whole thing. Because right now, somewhere outside your window, there are millions of people living their Tuesday, cooking dinner, arguing about something small that feels big, laughing at an inside joke you'll never hear, sitting in the traffic thinking about a conversation they should have had for years, lying awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, falling asleep next to someone they love, missing someone who's gone, quietly hoping things will get better. Just like you, they're all out there right now in the dark and the light and everything in between, living as hard and as fully as you are, and they have been this whole time. You just weren't looking. Thank you for watching the entire thing, and I hope you learned something today. If you want, you can subscribe to my channel, and if you like the video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you don't like the video, hit the thumbs up anyway. That's it. I'll meet you guys again soon. Bye.